Welcome to Contract Drafting for the Finance Lawyer. I'm looking forward to this fall semester. I'm sorry we can't be in person together, but after several weeks of doing it this way last semester, I think we're going to do okay over Zoom. Look forward to kind of cruising through the topics with you. I thought it might be helpful if I just gave you a quick overview so you could get a sense of what the class is going to be like. As you can see on Sakai under the syllabus tab, you can access the syllabus for the semester. Because of the format over Zoom and virtual, I rejiggered the way that the class is going to be run, and hopefully this will make it as convenient for everybody to get through all of the material as possible, and also as useful as possible to you to get through the material in a meaningful way. First, as I said, my name's Alexandra Johnson. I've been teaching at the law school since 2012. I've done a few different types of classes, but I've taught this class in particular for the last 6 years. And so it's something that I know very well, not only because I've been teaching it, but because it's what I do every single day of my actual practice, which leads me to what I do when I'm not teaching. I am a full-time practicing lawyer with Milbank in New York, and I practice transportation finance, which is a finance practice that focuses on the transportation industry, and primarily these days that means aircraft and aviation, but we also do transactions related to space, such as satellite construction and launching, and other space-related projects, and we occasionally work with vessels, rail cars, basically large things that move around the globe. Just in brief, the goal of this class is to give you the exposure to finance transactions from both a commercial side as well as a legal side. You'll find that those things are totally intertwined. So it's really helpful to understand, have a basic understanding of the commercial terms, as well as have an understanding of kind of the relevant legal issues. You'll see that we cover legal issues of all different types, including contract law, secured transactions law, international law, which relates to things like treaties, local law considerations, tax law, bankruptcy, etc. The real hope for this class is that you'll come out of this feeling like you've seen a transaction from start to finish. I think that's going to be really helpful when you move into practice, so that you can really understand sort of the tasks you're assigned, because you will have already seen kind of the bigger picture of the transaction. But likewise, I consider this class to be relevant for kind of all lawyers, whether litigation or transaction oriented, as well as those of you that decide you don't want to actually pursue legal careers. There's no difference between a good business person and a good lawyer except the JD. If you're a great business person, you're going to have an appreciation and a general understanding of legal issues. You'll be able to spot them, you'll be able to understand them. You may even be able to kind of navigate them at a superficial level. And if you're a great lawyer, you'll definitely understand the commercial considerations in the transactions that you're dealing with. That will make you incredibly valuable to your clients. Like I said, I consider this really relevant, not just whether you're a lawyer or business person, but also no matter what type of law you expect to practice. If you're going to be a litigator, most times you're going to be litigating cases that involve transactions. So this class is helpful because you will have understood the transaction process. If you're going to be a transactional lawyer, whether it's capital markets, finance transactions, M&A, we're going to be talking about all the concepts that are the foundational building blocks of those practices. And likewise, even if you decide to go into a practice that's perhaps kind of on the smaller side, and by smaller I don't mean tiny, but I do mean anything from hanging a shingle and being a general practitioner in a smaller area to working at a smaller firm or mid-sized firm, although the transaction we'll assume that you're working kind of on a bigger high dollar transaction, but still the concepts we're talking about will be applicable across all of those things. So I think you'll find it very useful. The general approach, we are going to run through a transaction, like I said, from start to finish. You'll get the background, we'll talk about fundamental concepts so you can begin to understand those things. Some of you have this experience, some of you don't have this experience. All of that is actually great, because for those that have it, you can help kind of at the very beginning, explain these concepts so that we're all starting off with a general amount of knowledge. For those of you that haven't worked with these things before, you'll ask really important, helpful questions to illuminate these concepts. We'll run through the facts of a hypothetical that will serve as the basis for our transaction throughout the semester. You'll get to see the term sheet process, and then we'll move on to the documentation process. We will walk through and draft most of a loan agreement during the course of the semester. During that time, you'll get to understand the provisions that are in the loan agreement and why. You'll get to draft and work on language, as well as the substance of the concepts that we're drafting. And you will, like I said, see that agreement cover to cover. At the very end of the semester, we'll plan to check out some of the other documents that are typically involved in a suite for a transaction of this type, which is a large secured loan transaction. So like I said, you'll have a picture of kind of the forest, as well as the trees by the time we end up done with this class. And you will have seen the process that we go through to get a transaction done. So when you end up in practice, you'll be familiar with that and have at least the beginning of an idea of how things will go. As for the class layout, I have switched that up a little bit for this semester. We have an hour and 50 minutes of time together each week, and then likewise there's a requirement that there be out-of-class assignments for this to be ABA credit eligible. I've broken the class time up into a few different types of things, which will include some pre-recorded segments that you'll be able to watch at your leisure. There will be live lecture, there will be breakout rooms for you to work with one another, and then we'll come back together to review the work you've done in those breakout rooms. And there will also be, like I said, homework assignments that you'll actually be using to prepare yourself for the class times. My goal is for this to be as substantive and useful to you as possible and focus much, much less on kind of making you work harder or longer than you need to. I just want you to understand the things that we're talking about, so when you get into practice or business, you have already sort of seen these things in play. Class preparation, I expect you to be prepared for class every time. As I said, you'll be in breakout rooms working with one another, and if you haven't prepared, you'll be less useful in those scenarios. You'll get less out of them. Likewise, in the class discussions, I'll expect your Zoom videos to be on, and I'll expect people to contribute. And if you don't contribute, then I'll have to call on you and ask you to contribute that way. Finally, attendance, totally mandatory. I consider, given that this is one meeting a week for the entire semester, I consider no absences to be a total requirement. If something comes up that requires that you miss the class, please let me know in advance and we can discuss it, and then we'll figure out how you can make up the time. You'll miss an entire segment of the transaction if you miss a class, so it's really, really important that you're able to attend class, and given that this is virtual, that should be easier than ever. And of course, we will be recording these classes, and if you have to watch something afterward, that's fine. But like I said, the contributions to class is really how you're going to kind of absorb these concepts best. And I'll do what I can to make these classes as painless as possible. And then finally, like I said, assignments. There will be assignments most weeks, and you'll need to submit those in advance. But the most important thing, these will be considered as part of your sort of class participation portion of your grade, but most importantly, it prepares you to be a really valuable participant during the class. So, hope this was helpful. Just a quick overview of what's going to happen this semester. We'll talk about this more on the first class session, but I wanted to give you a sense so you knew what you're getting yourselves into. I look forward to seeing you on Zoom, and I hope that we get the chance to meet in person sometime soon. Thanks. See you later.